You're going to be, the mega uber breach. It's really getting ridiculous. With some statistics like this is from 2014, 708 data breaches, 42 million personal records on an average cost of $3.5 million. So, and there's more and more and more. And the top 10 companies in terms of scale of breach, reads like a who's who list from e-commerce. Essentially, it is a password problem, and that's the problem that we're here to address. We're familiar with passwords. We all have our favorite characteristic of password to hate the most. But looking at it holistically, you really have to analyze and understand what is in the password if you want to come up with something that's truly revolutionary and truly different from password-based authentication. So not only do you have too many that are difficult to use, what does that lead to? Well, that leads to reuse. Reuse leads to one breach turning into multiple account compromise. And they're easily phished. Why are they easily phished? It means that I can socially engineer the secret out of you. Well, how can I do that? Because you wield the secret as a user. So if I can socially engineer the user, I can get the secret out of you. And the FIDO design avoids that situation. And also, they're open to malware. So they live in the space with applications. So they live in the space where malware can intercept it. But as we have tried to solve the problem before in an evolutionary step, let's add another authentication factor. The problem with this, at least in the consumer space, is you cannot mandate it. And once you introduce these extra authentication solutions as options, they're not very popular. So consumers are not signing up at all these online e-commerce services, now social networking services. At least the major services are offering second factor as an option, but the penetration rates are pretty low. So this isn't going to solve the problem. It certainly isn't going to boost engagement with your online service. The other problem is that they continue to be susceptible to many of the same attacks. So you have reliability problems with the OTP-based systems. You have the token necklace problem going with the hardware if you not want to use SMS. It's a poor user experience no matter how you look at it. And one of the things I typically say about now is the only thing worse than the password are two passwords, from a usability perspective. And they're still phishable. And not only are they theoretically phishable, they're actively being phished all the time. And the criminal apparatus, the industrial, military, criminal complex is getting better and better at attacking OTPs and phishing them. So we need a fundamentally new model, and we went after fast identity online, this organization, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the initial principles were that we were designing for, a little bit of how it works, some progress in the industry, and then throughout the day, you're going to learn more in a detailed way from some of the other experts about exactly how this stuff works. The first approach is a philosophical approach. So the old world was you have security on one end of the spectrum and usability on the other. If you need more security, you're going to have to sacrifice usability. That was the model. The FIDO model is to turn that upside down. We believe that, and have now proven in the market, you can have better usability and better security. And we really designed for usability first. Because if the users don't want to use it, this thing is dead on arrival. So it has to work for the consumers, it has to work for your user community, even your employees, or it's not going to get acceptance. And design the security so that it kind of comes along for free. There's not an extra burden on the user experience to get the extra security. So these are design principles. This is where I'd like to pause and point out that even though we are the Fast Identity Online Alliance and we're trying to solve this big problem, our approach is actually extremely tightly scoped. We are not dealing with the identity management stack. We are only focused on the authentication slice in the problem. All the good work of OAuth and OpenID and SAML, that continues. That's great. That stuff, we're not touching that. We're not duplicating efforts. We're not getting into that space at all. We're addressing the little black box that all those other technologies have of authentication happens here. Right? So we're actually filling that with a new industry standard and actually standardizing it, not letting it be an implementation detail anymore, we're going to have this protocol on how to do authentication to address the password problem and be informed about the reality of authentication today. Modern authentication is risk-based. You're going to be scoring those sessions. You're going to be looking at patterns of use. That adds value. FIDO is not getting into that area. We're not changing anything about that. We're giving you a stronger signal to tie your risk score to, and we're giving you a much better credential set for guarding the front door. You'll still do everything you're doing in terms of guarding the back door of people like stealing and exfiltrating. The simplest picture we can draw of how FIDO works is something like this. The model is device-based authentication. So the user verification to the device, to the authenticator in our term, on the device. Then the device, using a different set of credentials, authenticates you online. So the security that we built in is between the device and the online service. That's where we are getting into that no more secrets on the server. We're totally changing the security model of the credential. And what we're doing with the abstraction layer on the device, standardizing the plug and play capabilities on the device, is allowing you to innovate in all kinds of different proprietary ways of how to authenticate the user to the device, the user verification. So that is where proprietary innovation continues to live and thrive. You standardize on the device, plug and play with different authenticators, and you standardize the protocol between the device and the online server. These are the two experiences that we have standardized so far. So I'll talk about the passwordless experience. So this is delivered by a protocol family we call UAF, Universal Authentication Framework. And simple, authentication should be a simple 1, 2, 3. So step one, the online service has to authenticate you. So they send a challenge to the device. Step two, the device challenges you with the local credential. Let's say a PIN code that's local, not tied to an online service, or a gesture of some kind, a biometric, to unlock the technology that will then authenticate you online. And the device says, oh, I have the right user, now I'm going to authenticate you to your online session. That's UAF, and it's a complete password replacement. The other experience that we've defined is the second factor experience. Okay, so you still are using a username and password, and now you want to have a better second factor. So FIDO, we've introduced a better second factor from usability first, bring along better security. So you put your username and password, you insert your authenticator, give presence, and you're authenticated. So instead of going and chasing some 6-digit, 7-digit code on some other screen and trying to type it in before it expires, you just touch your device and you're authenticated. So the first time that you register, you're invited into this ceremony. So you're going to bootstrap off an existing authentication session. So you're in an authentication session, and now you're being invited by the online service to register. So you present your local authenticator. You create a public-private key pair. The private key is stored locally, and the public key is shared with the online service and stored with your account. So that then later, when you come back and you need to be challenged to authenticate or authorize a transaction, the online service sends a challenge to the device. The client knows how to challenge you for your local authentication, or including, touch your U2F token, and you sign the challenge, it goes back to the server and you're authenticated. So the key here is the online authentication happens with public key cryptography. Not PKI, no CA, third party involved, private key signing challenges directly from the online service. So how this looks with U2F, it's kind of a quick recap. Same model, user to authenticator, authenticator to online service. And what you are essentially getting is it the same user? Is it the same authenticator that registered before? That's what FIDO is giving you. Not identity proofing, all of that's out of scope. You're still going to do all that on your own. And here's how it looks in the wild. So Gmail is one of the deployers of U2F. The login screen. You're prompted to touch your authenticator, and you're into your service. So it's just that simple. This is in the wild, has been since October. On UAF, again, a quick recap. Here you are getting authentication locally, so you're not presenting other credentials to the online service. You're presenting yourself in some way, typically a biometric in today's deployments, to the local device. And here's how that looks in one of the deployments with PayPal. So you're going to make a purchase. PayPal says, okay, authenticate. They push the challenge down to the device. They control what's on the screen. So they have the messaging. Swipe here. They ask you to confirm the transaction. And then, it's approved. Made the payment. All you did is touch. I touched something. There are other authenticators out there who just look at something. There's really good work going on in Iris. Facial, voice, a lot of innovation in this space. I talked about usability and security, but I haven't talked about privacy. So what I want to say about privacy is it's been a core design principle. You can imagine if you're trying to do this, you might want to have a unique identifier on all these authenticators. So now you can really track and do your risk management. But we refuse to design it that way. We are introducing no new identifiers. You're going to infer it's the same device because of how well the private key is protected by that device. It's the fact that the signing process can be validated. You know it's the same device. I'm not giving you identifiers where you can correlate and track user behavior. So there's no third party in the protocol, no secrets on the server. If any biometric data is used, it's kept locally as a core requirement of FIDO. And there's no linkability between services of accounts because we're not introducing new identifiers. So in summary, we deliver better security for online services, reduce costs to the enterprise, and it's simple and safe for consumers. So now, a few words about FIDO Alliance. We're a membership organization led by this august group of companies on our board. And what's important about this is that we have recruited companies from both sides of the ecosystem. We have to bootstrap this. You can't use FIDO authentication if there aren't any authenticators in the market. You can't expect people to go build authenticators to put them in the market if there are no online services. So we've been working together to bootstrap this. And we've got leaders in the device side, operating systems, services, chip manufacturers, especially a lot of emphasis here. You can see payment. Payment's kind of the first killer app for FIDO. And we've achieved a lot in our short life so far. We announced the organization. We were 6 members strong, tiny little organization saying we're going to change the world. And over time, we've grown. We're now over 180 member companies. We have published in final draft our specifications at the end of December. We have a FIDO ready and FIDO certification program. You can get your products tested, third-party validation. And there are a few highlights in the news that I want to touch on very briefly, because I don't want to get into anyone else's time today. One of the first announcements of progress so far came from Microsoft earlier this year. And Microsoft announced that they're going to support FIDO in Windows 10. So what's the significance of that announcement? So over 1.5 billion users that are working with Windows devices today, various versions. Windows 10 will be in 190 countries this summer, and it's going to be a free upgrade for consumers. So right there is a signal to the online services thinking, I kind of like this user experience, but where are the authenticators going to come from? That's a lot of clients out there that can top FIDO that are coming into the market this year. Another announcement that came after that, already in 2015, was Qualcomm. And the significance of Qualcomm building their own sensor into the Snapdragon module is that Qualcomm is a massive market leader in enabling Android devices. They're credited with over 1 billion Android devices that are running on Snapdragon these days. They have over 85 different device manufacturers, the OEMs of the world building those devices. And they've also introduced a new sensor that addresses some of the previous spoofing attacks in the way it works. So you have another market leader rolling this out to a massive group, and that's another signal for the online services. Okay, so very soon I'm going to have all these Android devices, all these Windows devices. So what have some of the online services been doing? The first deployment in healthcare was announced this quarter. MedImpact, they service insurance companies, a pharmaceutical benefits management company, and what they're doing with FIDO is they're allowing doctors with a fingerprint authentication on Galaxy devices that are FIDO enabled They're allowing those doctors to check prescription histories immediately, quickly, on the fly. And if you've ever looked into what clinics tend to do with password management, it's horrifying. So this is great for all of us that they're getting with the program. We had to make it easier, or it wasn't going to get any more safe. Now we're getting security in healthcare, and they have potential reach of 50 million users. They're just starting with a physician's portal. Excuse me. This is going to get out to consumers that can access their own histories, their own prescription histories. And just this week, right? So yesterday, Google for Work announced that the U2F deployment that they did in 2014 is now available to all of the business customers they have, which is 5 million businesses are using Google for Work today. And now they have all these management services to go along with lifecycle management of these security keys, which are U2F tokens. And you would come and plug up for a couple of our members. This is the screenshot from Amazon this morning, where you can pick these things up and use them with Google and any other online service that enables it, because there's native support for FIDO U2F in Chrome. So when you put this in the context of everything that we saw last year as deployments, with PayPal having fingerprint authentication on Galaxy devices, Google providing native support in Chrome, and Samsung now taking it one step further and not having just a touch biometric, but introducing, a swipe, now introducing touch in the Galaxy S6, continuing with their FIDO deployment. There's a lot of momentum around FIDO. You can see why everyone's getting excited. And by everyone, I mean pictures like this. These are all the companies implementing FIDO 1.0 today, and this is a subset. This is a subset of companies that we knew about that have somehow reached out and worked with us and gone through our testing program. So there's a lot of devices, a lot of services, and a lot of software out there that can do FIDO already. So I encourage you to consider following FIDO Alliance, starting to do pilots, playing with this stuff. Go to the visiting seminars around the world almost every month. We're running a new seminar. We are doing a webinar every month. Go to our website. You can go and hear the new webinar, ask us questions that way. We have a public discussion forum, FIDO Dev at FIDOalliance.org. Ask your technical questions, you get answers. And if you want to be a part of this and provide requirements, because there is still a future that's not yet defined, we're adding new features to the technology. We're adding requirements for certification. We're looking into what the industry really needs in terms of third-party validation of how well biometrics work. So you want to be part of that conversation, join the Alliance. Thank you for your time.